Right, I'll leave it to you to kick us off then, Trev.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Myself and Jonny are in our East Midlands showroom, and the presentation you're going to be seeing is just going to be talking about the 3 different levels of machine, the R series, the Q, and the Speedy. Jonny will kick us off, and he will also be introducing Alex, our application engineer from Guildford, in a little while. I'll pass you over to Jonny, and I'll let him start.
Thank you very much, Trev. As Trev says, we're here in Loughborough in the East Midlands, and we would absolutely love to know where in the world you are, where you're watching from, and any questions or comments, fire them in, and we'll get to them and address them as we go. So let's kick off with a very brief presentation then. So, of our flatbed machines, which laser is going to be the right choice for you? Just as a very quick overview, main point is not all laser machines are the same. They might look pretty similar, a big metal box with a transparent lid so you can see what's going on inside it, but the innards can be very, very different and quite specialized for certain tasks rather than others. So it's important to actually understand what it is that you're looking to do with the machine. Is it going to be a cutting machine? Is it going to be an engraving machine? Do you want to do both? How much of each do you want to do? Do you want to do mainly one, but occasionally have the capability to do another? Where do your priorities lie in terms of how fast you want to go with it? Do you really emphasize quality? Is it going to be something that someone's going to hold in their hands and really sort of feel and touch and really see the quality of? Or is it going to be some big object where the overall edge quality isn't quite so vital? How much do you need to put through it? Is it going to be running all day, every day? Or is it just the occasional bit of work just because it works out better than sending it externally to pay someone to do it? Other constraints, of course, lasers are fairly big units in a lot of cases. Do you know where it's going to go? How you're going to power it? How you're going to set the exhaust up so you get out to air? Then, what else do you need really in terms of various options? We can have machines with a rotary axis for marking all the way around a cylindrical object. Our friends Jamie and Chris yesterday did an excellent presentation on that. Strongly encourage you to go back and watch it. Things like camera systems for referencing printed materials, so we're compensating for any kind of scaling or positioning issues and adjusting to that on the fly. Main point is, we're here to understand your requirements and look at what you're trying to do and figure out what's going to fit you best. So it's not just us saying this machine would suit you best. It's a dialogue. It's us talking to you. It's us understanding your requirements and then using our expertise, being able to recommend a suitable solution for you. So say you're a signage business and you're cutting great big letters potentially on the side of a shop, a building. Then the overall edge quality isn't going to be super important for it. You just want to cut very, very large shapes out of fairly thick materials. Maybe you don't need to do too much of it. Maybe your requirements for throughput aren't vast. And maybe you don't want to do much engraving because your products are going to be 20 foot in the air where no one's going to be seeing any kind of detail engraving with it. And even if you do want to do engraving, it's going to be quite basic and simple. So in that case, you might want to look at something like our Rayjet R range. So these are very large budget-focused machines. They are typically powered by a glass tube CO2 laser source. So if you caught us yesterday, we were going through this in quite detail with my friend Trevor here. A glass tube laser, very good way of getting a lot of power, very inexpensively, but it does lack a certain amount of finesse in terms of overall quality, how fast you can pulse it to get a lot of detail in, and certainly when it comes to engraving, can't really have the level of control required for doing things like photo engraving, for example. So the R range have stepper motor drives. So these are great for basic cutting jobs, but if we're looking to do very detailed jobs, maybe not the choice for you. The software on these machines is Rayjet Manager, which is a vastly improved software package from the previous iterations of Rayjet software. It's far more akin to our famous job control software these days with plenty of capability to it. These machines, excellent for cutting, as I say, very large working area of up to 1300 by 900 millimeters and powerful laser sources. So this particular model, the R500, comes with a 60 watt glass tube laser or 100 watt glass tube laser, and the 100 watt variant is going to have no trouble with, say, 12 to 15 mil of material whatsoever. What they're not really optimized for is precision engraving. As I say, things like photo engraving, high detail engraving, very complicated logos and inscriptions. It's not going to be the tool for the job for, because glass tubes, while excellent for basic jobs, for really high detail work, they're not really the tool for the job. So it's about time we brought in a friend of ours, actually. So this guy is a bit of a legend, and we're very glad to have him in the company. He's been doing a few live streams with us over Trotec Live 2, including an excellent photo engraving seminar yesterday. He's going to be joining us later on too for some work on our large format machine down in Guildford. So let's welcome in Mr. Alex Beckenham.
Hi everyone, hope everyone's well, and I'll obviously give a bit of an overview now of the Rayjet machines, well, the R series. So what we're going to look at here today is actually the R400. So this is the slightly smaller version of the machine, but it's still part of the R range. So this model's quite new to the lineup. It's a really good model in terms of, with the R500, the physical size of it was just, it was initially launched obviously to help companies like sign makers, whereas this one, it has a bit more accessibility in terms of startup businesses and other locations which are a bit smaller. So let's have a quick look inside this, and I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the internals of this machine and a little bit about some of the differences maybe between this and what you might typically find elsewhere on the marketplace in terms of an entry-level machine. So the first thing to note is you can see here by the keypad, let me just bring this camera off so you can see a bit closer. You can see it has our standardized keypad on here, and that's because it's using all of our own inbuilt electronics. So this has our very latest generation control boards. It's still a stepper motor machine, but it's using all of our own electronics in here. So this gives us the ability to do the basic control. So using the keypad, I can move the laser head about, and then I can also raise and lower the bed to do the setup. So that's one thing to note in the difference between this size machine and the larger format series of the R range. So the R500 is, the R500 has a fixed bed, whereas this machine has a motorized bed. So I'll just quickly put a little bit of material on the bed, and I'll just quickly show you the setup procedure for the work height. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the keypad to raise the bed, so you can just hold the button here. And then what we have is, for the manual method, we have the little depth setting gauge. So again, if you're used to a Speedy, it's very similar. Let's just go and sit on the laser head like that. And then we just use the keypad again to raise the material up until it touches the focus tool, and then we have our work height set. So very simple and easy to use, and very similar if you're already used to some of our other machines. If we have another look inside at the actual design, what you'll notice is we have an enclosed bearing case here. So all of the bearings and everything are centrally mounted inside of here. That means all of the dust and dirt and debris should be taken away by the extraction, and it's not going to go straight onto those bearing rails and cause any issues or any damage to them. So this is not quite as good as on the Speedy series, where we have the proper impact technology, but it's still a big step up from other equipment out there. Another big difference is the way that the actual system is built. So we use all our own, again, designed and manufactured CNC components, especially for the optics. So obviously, when we release these products, we look at the marketplace, look at common issues with other entry-level equipment. And one of them tends to be the fact that the optics can move and go out of alignment. Whereas with this, as you've just seen, simple thumb screw connections, just back on like that. No need to go back and have a look at any of the alignment or anything like that. So it's very well engineered. We have control here for the air assist. So we've got a little bleed valve for the external pump. And we also have the ability to adjust the extraction. So these are little slide vents here at the back, and it just allows you to control exactly where you want the airflow, and we have the same ability to do that underneath as well. Being a glass powered laser, we do also have a chiller, so I'll just quickly show you. So for the smaller tubes, we use these sealed chiller units here, and you can see even in our current climate, it keeps it at a nice 24 degrees, so a very steady temperature and ensures you get the maximum lifespan and quality from the actual laser source itself. So hopefully that was a good little overview of the machine. Hopefully you can see how well engineered and built it is. But again, we're limited obviously by that glass laser technology with the system. So back over to Jonny.
Absolutely superb. Thanks for that, Alex. There's a brilliant little overview of the R400. So you've obviously spent a lot of time with this machine now, being our main applications guy. How do you find the R400 for cutting and simple engraving tasks?
Yeah, I think it's a very good machine. So obviously it doesn't have the throughput that we do with obviously our other equipment, but in terms of the accessibility to a reliable machine, yeah, it's really good. It just takes a little bit more setup time, being that it's obviously got that glass laser tube.
Yeah. Well, we've had an R400 themed question while you're with us, Al. So hi Nathan, thanks for joining us. Nathan's looking for a machine for making quite fine cuts in paper, and the R400's where we're looking to get started. Are you able to show an example of how fine and how well it can cut paper? I'd love your feedback on this as well, Alex, but my thoughts are glass tube laser maybe not the greatest choice in the world for cutting fine paper. We'd be glad to do some testing for you, see if we can get the kind of results and quality you're looking for. My recommendation for fine cutting in paper would be the smaller Rayjet, the Rayjet 50, which is our small just over A3 size machine with a metal tube CO2 laser, and that will pulse a lot more quickly. It's going to get a lot more detail into a job and have a much better beam quality for getting high detail engraving and cutting done on something like paper. So my thoughts would be the smaller Rayjet, probably a better choice, a better fine cutter than the R400. But as I say, we'd be delighted to do some testing for you, show you what we can do. So anything to add to that, Alex?
No, I completely agree. I think, like you say, we are in a lucky position to know what you can do with a high quality laser. So obviously, like you say, send the material across, and then we can perform tests on each machine, and you can see those different results.
Absolutely.
Well, I know from dealing with Hannah Nunn, who was cutting a lot of paper and parchment, she was getting a lot of dark edges on the materials using glass tube laser. So she was having to, with them being very fine, detailed, natural kind of products and shapes, she was having to dust them off. Whereas when she's swapped to a ceramic tube, it's got rid of a complete process for her. So yeah, that sounds pretty much in line with what Jonny and Alex are talking about. Am I right in thinking that there's also the undertable extraction and the programmable Z on the R400, Alex?
Yeah, so that's again the big difference between the R400 and the R500. So with the R400, we've got that adjustable bed height, which is really useful for some other features. And again, the extraction is variable as well. So we've got a little vent that you can adjust the airflow.
So I'm glad you brought Hannah up, actually, Trev, because Trev had a great interview yesterday with one of his customers, Hannah Nunn, who makes absolutely fabulous lampshades with very high detail engraving and cutting, and does a superb job on a Speedy 300, which is a ceramic type laser, which is very, very good for high detail stuff.
Right, so I will leave you to it, and I'll see everyone else later on in the large format session.
Yep, no problem. Session after this, Alex is back with a much bigger laser than this, so stay tuned for that.
See you in a while.
Thanks, Alex. So while we're talking about the little Rayjet, see my friend Amy Hill back. Hi, Amy. Everyone follow Amy at Mischief Pop on Instagram because she's brilliant. My podcast buddy from Canada. Hi to Amori. Lovely to have you with us this afternoon. And hi to Ross from sunny Ayrshire. So let's go back to the presentation then, guys. So. Next step up is the Q range. So Q range is an improved version of the R range. So same size chassis and machines, but with much improved technology within. So we typically will have a glass tube, just like the R range. We can also have the option of one of the ceramic lasers, which are very good for high detail engraving and very fine detail work. So you've got a main cutting laser, if you will, and then something which we would suggest in most cases would be your ceramic laser, focusing more on engraving. So the drive system's taken a bit of an upgrade. So we're now on servo motor drive on the Q500, which is what I'll be running in just a second. So that also has our OptiMotion system, which is our new drive control system. So the laser can think about how quickly it can go around various parts of its cut path and really do it in an optimal way. So it saves a lot of time in the setup, so you don't have to use 10 different settings for cutting different parts at different speed, and it's a much faster job overall when you're running it too. So it's a great bit of technology, which we're very proud of. It runs the same job control software as the flagship Speedy Range. So very advanced software which can do all kinds of stuff. Excellent for cutting because now with servo motors we've got a much smoother action as we go around it. Obviously still within the limitations of the glass tube, but now we can move it around much more smoothly and quickly. And we're going to be able to have a camera system on this one at some point this year. So then we'll be able to really focus on big printed sheets of material of choice and cut them out very accurately indeed. So engraving quality is going to be an improvement on the R range, but never as fast or as detailed as the Speedy range, which I think we proved yesterday on the glass tube via ceramic demonstration that myself and Trev did. So let's have a little look on the mighty Q500 then. So there will be 1 second while we stop that screen. So
Just bear with us a second. That's better, Sen. I don't think anyone wanted to look at me for any great deal length of time.
So this is the Q500. So we have extraction at the back of the machine. The laser head is a more advanced version of the one on the R series, and we have a adjustable focus arm here where we can introduce a bit of a focus offset should we desire it. So this machine with servo motors has a much smoother operation than the R series. This is really a very good cutting machine with also the ability to engrave too. So this one has a 120 watt glass tube laser, so this is going to have absolutely no trouble 15 mil or more of most materials. We're just going to be working with 3 mil acrylic today for brevity, but yeah, this is going to have no trouble with some quite thick acrylics if we ask it to. Let me get my screen back. Hi Lothian, welcome back. So photos be better on the ceramic laser, infinitely so, yes. Always massively better on a ceramic laser because you can fire it just so many more times a second to really pick out all those fine little spots of detail. So it's going to be far better. And if you didn't already see it, our friend Alex, who joined us briefly, is going to be running, well, he did run photo engraving webinar yesterday. So feel free to go back and watch that because he did a great job of it. It was some fantastic information. So let me find my Corel Draw. So we're back on Corel Draw. This is the file we're going to be running today. So we're going to be running a clock face design with some engraving for the face and some fancy cutting for the actual body of the clock. So we will just, as we do, file and print. Print by selection. And then we'll pick up our settings as per usual. So we're going to be engraving this with 40% power, 40% speed, as we did previously. We are also going to be cutting it at 85% power and 1.55% speed. So we'll click that through, hit print. I will stop my screen share. And I will swap my camera, and then I will pass you over to the machine. So here we are. So we're going to be working on some black acrylic today, as I say. Let me just get that started. So we'll bring in the clock face. Just going to get fired up in the background. Bear with me. So the biggest difference between the Q and the R range, as I say, is the technology that moves the laser around rather than the laser technology itself. So we want to be using as smooth a motion as we can, which is why the Q range was developed as a kind of upgrade to the R range. So I'll get you in position, and then we will fire the laser. So off we go, back and forth on a raster fill, as we do. As we explained the other day, the laser is going to be passing through its graphics back and forth, over like a printer. And when we're doing a cut line, it's going to be tracing around the edges as a vector line. So I will bring my presentation back at this point. So another example then. So say you're a company who does a lot of promotional items for marketing, that kind of thing. You probably want to work with a very wide range of materials. You almost certainly want to be using very quality engraving because you want to have nice objects for people to have and hold and remember the event with. So things like pens, glassware, key rings, could be all sorts of promotional items, could also be a variety of printed materials, or it could just be a load of pre-printed materials which you could then cut out a jig with the laser and then place as many as you like in the machine to then work with on the laser. So you almost certainly might want to have cylindrical items. Say if you want to do commemorative bottles of wine or glassware, what have you, you'll also almost certainly need a cylindrical fixture for that. So if that's the case, I would recommend you go back and look at Chris and Jamie's presentation from yesterday, where they did a fabulous and very detailed overview of rotary axes and all their capabilities. One quick thing to note: if you're going to be engraving bottles of wine with a laser and a rotary fixture, please do it at room temperature, because it can cause issues if you do it straight from the fridge. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. So let's now go and talk about the Speedy Range. So Trev is going to be running the Speedy 400 today. The Speedy Range are our flagship range of machines with ceramic or CO2 sources, very long lasting, very high beam quality, and you can pulse it very quickly indeed. So perfect choice for high speed engraving. Also on the Speedy range, we can have a fiber laser as well. So fiber laser is great for direct marking of metals. If you saw Jamie's presentation earlier, you'll have seen the flex. Jamie and Andy on this morning talking about various things you can do with fiber laser. So instead of using a CO2 laser, you might have something like Cermark spray to get metal mark. Fiber laser will mark metals directly. So go back and watch this morning's session. It was excellent. Again, with the servo motor drive on these machines with our Optimotion system, so incredibly high acceleration, up to 5G in this machine, with a traverse speed of around 4.2 meters a second. So a very, very quick acting machine. And with the Optimotion system, particularly on thinner materials, we could be anything up to 8 times quicker than a competitor machine. So it's a fabulous bit of technology. Software, as per the Q range, is going to be our job control software. So very, very advanced, highly sophisticated software with lots of control over the marking. So in essence, the Speedy range is going to be for very, very good quality work. So it's going to be fast, accurate cutting, and it's going to be incredibly fast for flatbed engraving. In fact, you're not going to find a faster flatbed engraving machine than this one. And again, various options available, camera systems, rotary axes, all kinds of things you can add to it to add extra capabilities to. So I'll pass you over to Trev now, who's going to be talking to you about our Speedy 400. So over to you then, Trev.
Thanks, Jonny. So I'll be doing the same file, a little bit like we did yesterday with the breadboards. So let me just bring my screen up. So I'm going to be using CorelDRAW. This is exactly the same file, which we can see is 400 by 400. File and print. And we're just into the engraving software. So at the moment, we're just treating it like a printer. We're working straight from CorelDRAW. We've clicked on selection. We'll now go into the settings. And because I've clicked on selection, I'm also picking minimize the job size. We know that the job is 400 by 400, so we know it's going to fit on the table, which is 1000 by 610. And again, I'm working with 3mm acrylic. So for the engrave, I'm working with 45% of the power that's available, which is 120 watts, and 100% of the speed. In terms of the power for cutting, I'm going to use 60% of the power and 0.6 of the speed that's available. I'm running the file at 500 dpi, so just click on job control, click on print, and then we're just going to wait for the job control icon to flash. Which tells me that the artwork is there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that piece of artwork. I can identify what it is, and I'm just going to drag that piece of artwork onto those crosshairs. So if I now just switch my camera, we've now got the camera inside the machine. Just alter that camera angle because it's moved slightly. That's better. And what I've done is I've just got the laser head just in from the edge of the acrylic by about 4mm. Already we can see from the timings that it's going to take 5 minutes and 9 seconds to engrave and 7 minutes and 48 seconds to cut. So we'll just set that file going.
That's an enormous difference. So 5 minutes to engrave and nearly 8 for cutting. Just for reference, the timings on my job on the Q500 were more like 17 minutes for the engraving and similar for the cutting. So we're overall about a 35-minute job, but on the Speedy we're looking at about a third of the time, and the quality should be much higher to boot as well. It's all about having the right machine for the right particular task.
And I know in this morning's podcast with Jamie, somebody asked about what's the right machine. It's going to alter greatly from application to application. What we see increasingly are people working in one field and using a laser for working with a material, say paper, perhaps, looking at things like wedding invites, etc. But then their business transforms, they start working with different materials. The materials might be bigger in terms of sheet form. The materials might be more delicate. The range of products that you offer. And most people start off with just flat in mind. So it's always worth bearing in mind that, and again, from a previous webinar that the guys did earlier, Jamie and Chris, I think it was yesterday.
And, oh yeah, Chris, yeah.
Looked at using a rotary to add another element to people's business. And if you do go back and have a look, they are timestamped, you can quite quickly see where they put an ROI, so you can look at the value of the investment and how quickly you can return that. So it's all about looking at, I would say, looking at the right machine for right now, but then also give yourself some capacity for bigger, or the ability to swap in different directions with different products, just so you can be nimble and kind of pivot in terms of your business. Because again, creativity is what's going to be driving the laser. The more creative you are, the more you're going to use your laser, then the more you'll start pushing the boundaries, either in size or speed, etc.
That's a great point, Trev. And just to add on that a little bit, lasers are very good at finding extra work for themselves once you have them as well. They're very flexible technology, which you can do all sorts of things with. But it just gives you that ability to kind of move with the times, particularly in especially challenging and unpredictable times that we currently find ourselves in. So it's great to have a tool that is so universal and so much scope to do various tasks with. So let me just start my cut on my machine.
So as we can see, we're I would say just over halfway on the Speedy, and we can see a nice clear white mark. All we've done is just use enough power to alter the state of that material surface. We're not actually looking for a great deal of depth, because the acrylic's not going to go any whiter the deeper I engrave it. So all I want to do is effectively leave a mark. And if the settings are gentle enough, we should be able to leave a nice white mark, and I'll not be able to tell whether it's either printed or engraved. Whereas with the Q series, we could see a lot more debris on there. There's a lot more white, purely because we've not got as much control over that speed and power. I've got no sound from you, Jonny.
Apologies, that'll be me not being on the stream. No, I was just saying that Speedy's doing an absolutely fabulous job on the engraving there. It's lovely, subtle, gentle marking that it's doing. So now we'll start the cutting with the Q500. So the cutting is going to be lovely and smooth with this one, even within the limitations of how fast you can pulse the glass tube laser. So it's got a nice gentle motion around there, just cutting out the various pieces of the design. So while that is going, let me pop back in with the presentation. So yeah, just as a summary then on the machines that we've been looking at. The R series, very, very much budget orientated system. Still a very large machine, 1300 by 900 is the R500. Glass tube, DC, CO2 laser source, so low pulse rate but relatively high power for the price of the machine. Stepper motor motion, which is great for basic work, but for precision work, maybe not quite the choice that you want. Slow and very basic engraving capability. So you saw the speed that the Q500 engraves. Well, the R series is only about half the speed of this one. So the engraving is going to be a little on the limited side, but if you don't need much of it, then that's not going to be an issue. But the cutting speed is going to be perfectly fine for most basic jobs. Not quite as quick or as smooth as this one, but it's going to be a good basic cutter. Q series is the one we're running at on the bottom of the screen now. So the Q series is the better version of the R series. So it's same size of machine, same DC laser tube, but we also have the option of the secondary ceramic core source for high detail work as well. We're onto servo motors now, which are much more smooth and delicate about their operation. You can pick out a lot more detail, and we've got the OptiMotion technology on that. So for engraving, still going to be basic, but it's going to be a lot quicker than the R series, with a maximum traverse speed up to 2 meters a second versus 1 meter a second on the R series. But the cutting capability is going to be very, very good. So we're going to have servo motors to drive it around smooth, and the OptiMotion to really get the best possible path. The Speedy series, obviously Trev's one is already onto the cutting with that. So these are the premium models with the very highest performance which we will find. So 1016 by 610 is the biggest one, which is the one Trev's working on. The Speedy 400. We'll have a good look at the Speedy 400 in a minute too, because we haven't had a look at that one yet. We are ceramic core sources for all of our CO2 requirements on this machine, so we don't use any glass tubes on the Speedy series, and we also have the option of the fiber laser for direct metal marking if we want to do that as well. Servo motors and OptiMotions on everything, and now we even have the servo motor. We had the servo motors before on the 100 and 300, but the 100 and 300 now also have the OptiMotion too, so they've had a significant upgrade of late. Incredibly fast precision engraving, as you've just seen on Trev's screen there, so up to 4.2 meters a second maximum traverse speed. So at full speed, it's over twice as fast as the Q series, and it can get there very quickly too. So up to 5G acceleration, so it's staying at full speed for a large proportion of its engraving run to really get some work done. So extremely high cutting speed, and servo motors and OptiMotion mean this is going to be the fastest flatbed engraving machine that you can currently find on the market. So we'll just watch them go around cutting for a mo. How's yours getting on there, Trev?
We've got about another 3 minutes, I reckon, of the cutting. But yeah, nice and smooth through the curves. We're not trying to cut it particularly fast. We could push the machine to go faster. However, what I am looking for is I'm looking for a nice finish on the edges, because this is something that we want to be hanging up in our showroom so we can tell the time. So that's the one thing we've not got. I've got plenty of lasers, but no clock.
But something to make a clock with, which is even better. So the Optimotion does have 3 different settings. So we've got our standard processing, we've got a high throughput processing where it will go for extreme speed, or we've got a high accuracy setting wherein we will take extra care to get it as accurate to X thousandth of a millimeter as possible. So while you're there, Trev, do you want to show people the Speedy 400 and just show what the thing looks like?
Yep, do you want to just bring that up?
I can indeed, sir.
There you go. So that's the Speedy 400, and we're using one of our Atmos extractors because the unit that we're in the East Midlands, we've not got access to out to air, so we're just using the filtered extractors. Also doubles up as a nice workstation, and it also makes the whole unit a portable workstation. So with this type of setup, it could be that you move it from station to station within a factory unit. We sometimes have people who start off on the factory floor and then maybe move up to a mezzanine as the needs of the business change. So that's the equipment that we're using, and then just a standard PC, and everything that we're using is running from CorelDRAW. So CorelDRAW straight into job control, no changing of files, a really nice, quick, easy process.
Excellent. And the extraction on that one, Trev, is at the back and underneath the table as well. So we've got 2 different exhaust ports on that particular machine.
Yeah, so any gases and debris that's being formed on the top with the engrave, of which there's very little, is going through the vents at the back of the machine, which Jamie was talking to us about earlier. And then any gases that are being created while we're cutting are disappearing underneath the table.
One particularly cool thing about the 400 is if you zoom in a little bit more, Trev, at the back of the machine, the progress bar lights. So you've got a very nice visual indicator of how far through the job it is as those lights light up as you go. So I like it. I think it's great.
This part here. So at a glance, even from a distance, if I was doing another process or cleaning or packing, etc., we can see how close the job is to nearly being finished.
Cheers for that, Trev. Thank you very much. So our friends at Lothian Woodworks are back again. Thank you so much for watching so much of our content this week. It really does matter to us, and we massively appreciate it. So thank you. It makes it all worthwhile. So since you've got your laser, you wanted to do guitars. Having seen Chris's demo yesterday, I really wanted to do one at least. Oh yeah, go for it. Just go for it. Honestly, you get a lovely result on wooden guitars. Most of the showrooms, we don't have one here, but most of the showrooms have like a nice photo engraved guitar. It's a lovely, lovely centerpiece. So it looks amazing, and it's not like you've printed it on, it's going to rub off over time. You've actually physically changed the top surface of the material, so it's going to be there forever as well. So it's yeah, do it and share the results with us, and we'll share it all over our social media. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think Chris has got Eric Clapton, and has Andy got Johnny Cash, I think
So,
Johnny
yeah. You have got your Neil Diamond engraved jeans though, so that's nearly as good.
Not as cool as a guitar, though.
No, you're right, it's not. Now we just got to extract it from the plastic. Ooh.
We're coming up to, should be the last few seconds of the cut on the Speedy 400.
That 400 has absolutely flown through that, mate. That's absolutely, yeah. It was, I'll say, about a third of the time of our one on the queue.
Yeah, and we could have probably pushed for some more speed, to be fair, by optimising the file and use job control cut, but I don't, probably proving the point a bit too much in some ways. So this should be just the last few seconds or so. because the computer predicted we'd be at 12:57. There we go. We've just finished. I don't know if you could see down there, we were at 13 minutes and 16 seconds, but what that's not taken into account for, it takes about 10 seconds for the extractor to cut in. So we'll lift the lid. I'm just going to move the camera slightly.
So I'm just giving mine a bit of a clean up, just so you know what I'm doing, everyone.
There's the file. So we've got very little visible debris. Now all I want to do is just lift that part away, so we can see we've got a really nice clear cut. And then very carefully, I just need to pick this up. Just pop those last few little pieces out that are clinging.
I think it's the geometry of the file, isn't it? I'm just popping out the last few ones from this side too.
So there's this file. So a really intricate, nice cut. We've got a really delicate engrave. And if I just run my finger across it, there's barely any depth at all. I've got a great deal of trouble, unless I'd seen it being manufactured, I wouldn't be able to tell if that had actually been cut or engraved. So let me just swap back the cameras for the moment. How are you doing, Johnny?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Just still fighting with the last few ones of these here that are stuck in. Won't be a second.
There we go. That's probably a better camera angle. So you can just see the engraving. So what I'm also going to do is, earlier this week, we also ordered some little clock mechanisms. So I'm just going to assemble that. Very quickly. Have we lost any sound, Johnny? I can't hear you. Have you caught your
Oh
mic?
no, I'm still here, mate. Still here. Just giving mine a bit of a clean up.
There you go. So if I just alter... Oh, wrong camera. Just alter to my camera for me, will you, Johnny?
I can, mate. 2 seconds.
There you go.
Look at
So
that.
very
Well
quickly,
done.
very simply, we've managed to cut and engrave the camera. And obviously with... How much were these clock mechanisms that you bought? I think your microphone's gone, Johnny. Yep. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was off the stream then for a second. Apologies. Just fighting with cameras.
There you go.
In terms of the engraving, then with the Q series, it's not. I just want to zoom right in on that. It's not got the same level of finesse or detail as the Speedy. It also took 3 or 4 times longer than the Speedy, but it's certainly done the job with it. So we'll get that get the mechanism on the back of that, and we'll show you what it looks like. So let me pop back on the camera.
There you go. That's a bit straighter now, I think. So, have we got any questions in?
We'd love to hear them if we have.
So, Johnny, how are you going to clean off the white dust?
I have been using some methylated spirit. So it's an excellent method of just getting all the surface dust and debris off a product. In fact, let's do it a little bit more before we do a reveal. So methylated spirit's a great method of getting rid of just that kind of smoky debris that acrylic can give you. It all comes off very nice and easily and gives you a nice clean result afterwards.
Okay, we'll get that one down.
Have we had any more comments or questions come through?
Speedy speak for themselves when you see them side by side. Yeah, quite often we'll run a couple of different machines side by side just because A Speedy 100 will engrave at 2 meters a second. A Speedy 300 will engrave at 3.55 meters a second. So it's surprising how much of a difference on certain files, just by using different machines, it will give you a difference. So again, if we're looking at a return on investment, if we're looking at productivity, that's the kind of test we'd do. We would ask you to send in files so we can look at using your artwork, if necessary, your materials, if you're using something a little bit different from the norm, and then we can see how long it will take us to produce your work, so to speak. And then you can kind of go away and look at doing the maths.
Oh yeah, and we can help you with the maths too. I mean, really try and like build a return on investment case for something, and yeah, just see if it's going to be worthwhile. So can we see?
Let's have a look at this. So Alan's asked,
Go.
if you do a heavy raster, you can inlay different materials into the wood.
There we go.
I do this on a guitar fretboard. Yeah, if we look at removing more materials, we might be able to inlay. I've got somebody who looks at uses mother of pearl.
Oh yeah, mother of pearl's great. Mother of pearl works fantastic. It it smells horrendous when you cut it. That's the only thing to mention on that one. It smells horrific, but it does an excellent job. Yes, we were speaking to someone recently doing that, weren't we? Yeah, so that's a great thing to do. It looks amazing to do on a fretboard.
Graham's asked, he's been ducking in and out and missed if that's black acrylic and what settings. Yes, it is just clear, black cast acrylic. I used 45% power, 100% speed, and that's pretty much the setting I would use on a Speedy 300 as well. Maybe 40% just to be a little bit delicate, just with that.
Sounds about right to me. Yeah, I mean, you don't need a lot of power, and it often looks better if you use less power for it. So it's certainly worth, just not overexposing it, because then all you're going to do is make more dust and debris as you go too. So yeah, nice and gentle with that. Yeah, that sounds ideal.
Any other questions on
Where
there, Jonny?
did we get down to on the questions? No. I can't see any more, to be honest. So, yeah, what else have we got to say about these machines then? So it's great to actually have the chance to sort of run them back to back, do the same kind of work with them, because it's the only real way of comparing them and just showing the pros and cons. Obviously, I think you made this point yesterday, Trev, the Speedy, it's a lot faster. It's going to produce a lot more things, but then again, it's a machine that's approximately twice the price of the Q500. So you would naturally expect a difference in the capabilities on that front. But it's more than that, really. It's more that the Q500 is really more set up as a primarily cutting machine with an engraving function rather than a pure engraving and cutting versatile do anything machine like the Speedy Range.
Yeah, because we tend to talk about the Speedy Range as really fast engravers that we can slow down and use a fraction of the speed for them to be great cutters. And a lot of people, when looking at engravers, will look at buying really big machines. However, a lot of the time, they're only ever using kind of the top left-hand corner for engraving. So, are you better off with a smaller machine, because you're very rarely going to use the whole of the bed size, and have something that's faster, because then you might be more productive. It's all about looking at what you're trying to achieve and where you are in your journey, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as per Nathan's comment earlier, though. The R400 versus the little Rayjet 50. I mean, the little Rayjet 50 is tiny in comparison, but in terms of engraving capability, it's over twice as fast, and it will produce better quality work as well. So, for light work, intricate work, you might not necessarily want a giant, great big machine that does everything all in once. You might want to look at a more focused little machine just for the high detail jobs and the precision that would give you. Even though the machines are very comparable in terms of pricing, capability is vastly different. So I very much hope it's been useful today. So have we got anything else that we can really talk about? I see James from Marketing's joined us. Hello, James.
Well, just one of the
and Brian.
Hello guys. I did not add myself, but hi.
Sorry, that was me clicking on James instead of myself to add to the
No trouble. Oh, I've got one more comment here from Loading Woodworks. Massive mix of engraving, cutting, etc. I want to get into engraving oak. Yeah, so ceramic CO2 laser from Speedy Range is going to be the tool for that job all day long. It's going to be perfect, perfect bit of kit.
Yeah, power's key, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. As you've often said, Brian, you can never have too much power of a laser because you can always turn it down, but you can always have not enough for a particular task.
For sure, absolutely. Guys, thank you. That was really good. Are there any more questions from anybody about the comparison that the guys have just done? If so, please pop in the chat.
The only other thing I was going to mention, Brian, is yesterday, after we did the breadboards, one of the guys commented that the breadboard wasn't very dark in terms of contrast. So what I did is I went and fished out the breadboard that I'd done the day before with exactly the same settings, which proves that the beauty of wood is also sometimes the problem with wood, because each piece of wood's a little bit different. Whereas with the things like acrylics, we can get the same result all the time, every time. Whereas these two boards, same supplier, same box, same settings, but for whatever reason, one of them's slightly different.
Yeah, and that also can make a massive difference if you're doing things like photo engraving. If having a material with its own kind of detail and texture means your image has really got to kind of leap out from it. So it can make photo engraving a little bit more tricky. So if you're trying not to put too much detail into it, it can be a lot more effective.
Guys, are there any specific market segments where you would see one type of machine being favourable over another?
Sorry, second, Brian, didn't quite catch you there.
Are there any market segments that you think where a glass tube machine specifically for that market is better than a ceramic, and vice versa?
Oh, certainly. I mean, if all you're doing is cutting, so say we used the example earlier, but large signage, you may not want to do any engraving whatsoever. Or if you want to be doing large scale models, like on Trotec Canada the other week, we're doing their large format challenge. They're designing things on the fly, so like making 3D objects, that all slot together from various pieces. No engraving there at all. Just big old cutting. So glass tube would be ideal for that kind of work.
Okay. Good. And Lothian Woodworks has put wood is a curse, which I think we can all agree with. It's a wonderful product, but natural variances can also cause a problem.
Can be unpredictable, but yeah, all depends what you're looking to do with it, of course.
Great. So I would like to thank you, chaps.
Absolute pleasure.
That was a good session. I hope everyone enjoyed it.